I've done a lot of psychedelics, we're talking hundreds of trips. And to say it's only been beneficial like some people might claim just isn't honest. I've talked about some of the main risks before, but today I want to talk more about some of the cons to tripping that many people don't really consider in terms of your mental health, your place in society, and stuff like that. I just want to make it really clear that I can only speak from my personal experience. Everyone's different, and these are just some things you might want to consider before taking psychedelics, both as a newbie and a veteran. Now, at least where I'm from, most people do not take psychedelics. Even the minority that try them often won't continue using, despite what this guy might try and tell you. Taking psychs is probably going to change you, and whilst it's usually for the better, change often means that you diverge away from social norms. It's not uncommon for people to want to stop smoking and start eating healthy and exercising after a psychedelic trip. If your best friend is Winston Churchill and you decide to do that, then that's going to put a boundary between you and them. Now you can either continue to take part in those activities when you don't want to, you can relate less to your friends, or you can lose them altogether. None of these options really sound that great, at least in the short term. And let me tell you, the further you go, the lonelier it gets. If everyone you know is a Scientologist and you transcend that, in one sense it's great, but in another sense you've lost your tribe. Psychedelics have the power to radically change you, and if you allow them to do that enough, you might sometimes struggle to relate to your society and culture. They won't understand you, and trying to convince them will usually just make it worse. Though this is often balanced out by a benefit. If you haven't already noticed, most people demonize who they disagree with. Liberals demonize conservatives and vice versa. Theists demonize atheists and vice versa. But generally there's a trend. The more evolved of the two is less likely to demonize the other. As you yourself evolve, you're far less likely to demonize the people that you might radically disagree with. So even though someone like me might find it really hard to relate to an Orthodox Mormon in one sense, in another sense I see the validity in their perspective and I can still find things in common with them and get along. Another con which kind of relates to this is that society, in its beautifully unevolved state, is quite likely to demonize you. If you have traditional Trump supporting family members, then they're probably not gonna be okay with you smoking weed, let alone taking exotic chemicals made in a lab. Yeah, the difference between our medications are cultural, but they can't see that. They think there's an objective difference, and if their medication is good, yours must be bad. Being forced to either lie and hurt yourself or tell the truth and hurt others isn't the ideal spot to be in. Which brings me to another massive con I think very few people acknowledge. Psychedelics are relatively new in our culture and haven't really been explored and mapped like other domains have. That means you get the shitty map I'm giving you, or you create your own. Maybe a bit of both. Either way, there's so many ego traps in this journey that it's kind of hilarious. All of us watching, including myself, are probably in multiple traps right now, and a lot of them are really hard to escape. Some of these traps require such a radical level of open-mindedness that you will never escape them in this lifetime. I really want to talk about a lot of the traps I've faced and seen others face in the future, so stay tuned. If you're using psychedelics for consciousness work, then you might notice that day-to-day life can feel more intense than before you started. You're not really just going through the motions and living unconsciously anymore, at least to an extent. Now it can feel like you're absorbed in every single moment, and this makes for higher highs, but also lower lows. It's really not uncommon for people to go through phases of things like meaninglessness, which can be really depressing if you interpret it as a bad thing. Of course, whether it's good or bad depends on your interpretation of it, but sometimes ignorance is bliss. When you trip, you're taking that red pill and your ego might not like what it sees, especially when that truth threatens its survival. Don't worry too much, these phases are often temporary and can be overcome, but they're not necessarily fun to go through. Something that many people might consider a rude awakening is the fact that there's always more shadow. Psychedelics can be really great in healing you, but once you've healed enough, you'll realize that no matter how much you heal, there is still an infinite amount more yet to be healed. You can do shadow work for decades, but good luck completely 100% getting rid of your shadow. There's never a point you can reach where you'll never suffer again. You simply can't get rid of it. Sure, you can take a lot of weight off your shoulders, but no matter how much you take off, there's always more weight to overcome. Don't let this scare you off though. As a whole, psychedelics have benefited me in practically every way. More than I can ever explain here, but it is valuable to see both sides. Don't expect to get get the results of change without actually changing. I can't wait to tell you all about the benefits, so make sure to like the video and subscribe if you're new. Take care everyone.